right. Well, welcome back to Creative Pursuits. I'm Casey Parlett. I'm really excited today to be sitting with my friend Rick Graves. He's a photographer that's done a lot of different things. We started in the Festival of the Arts we both started at the same time in 2008, and we've both been in there ever since. And I've known Rick for a long time, and I've been a fan of his work for a long time. And I know little bits and pieces about, the stuff you've done over the years, but I'm excited to be able to kind of dive in and hear a little bit more of your history and a little bit more of the stuff you've done. So thanks for being here, Rick.
Yeah, awesome. Good to be here. Thanks for thinking of me.
Of course.
I look forward to chatting with you.
Yeah. So I'd say now you're probably best known for your unique style of photography that you're doing, but you've done a lot of different things. So let's start off first with kind of a little bit into your process and sort of the work that you do, and you explain your work to everybody.
Yeah. So it's interesting to hear you say I'm best known, and I'd say I'm best known in Laguna Beach for my long format photography.
Yeah.
It is kind of my signature thing that it's my shtick that I've kind of latched onto in order to separate myself from my competition, right? It is photography. It's very unusual photography, and exhibiting at the festival, trying to stay in the show at the Festival of Arts is the trick, right? Not to get juried out. And so having something that's unique and different and high quality is your goal. And so as long as I've been there, I've tried to stay true to just exhibiting that long format photography. And basically the way that it came to be was I was doing a car brochure, because that's really my primary industry is automotive photography and then filmmaking. So going back to when I was, just before I started doing filmmaking, I was meeting with a creative director, and just out of the blue, we're planning to do a brochure for Mazda. He was the creative director for Mazda. And he looked at me and said, "Show me something new and different I've never seen before." And I was kind of just taken aback by that question. And I said, "Okay, give me some time, I'll get back to you." And so I left the meeting kind of just, with my head, spinning as to what could I do that would be, unique and different, something he'd never seen before. This is an older creative director that has seen everything. And
yeah,
so
photography is an extremely, it's a lot of competition and a lot of different things that people are doing.
It is, and I'll tell you a funny little analogy in the automotive industry is that it's almost more important the food that you cater to the shoot than your photography quality.
Really?
So wrap your head around that. So there's so much competition in the automotive space that, the way that you separate yourself is not your photography as much as the food that you bring to the photo shoot for the
everything.
Clients.
Yeah.
And for the whole experience. So that was kind of my background, was doing automotive, big production, advertising, brochures, stuff like that. And so when he challenged me with this, show me something new and different I've never seen before, for me, there's nothing better than a challenge.
Yeah.
That gets me going. And so I had remembered a saying that I remember almost to the day when I was so young, and I remember reading an article about a designer, filmmaker that had all these different abilities in the art industry. And he wasn't just like a specialist. He did everything. And he had said, look first to do something unique. Everything's been done in the world. So look for something old and do something new with it. And that really stuck with me. So that was basically my what drove me to think about something new and different to show this guy. And I had, 20 years prior, I had played around with a little plastic filter that had a linear slit, a tiny little 1/10 of an inch slit cut in this piece of plastic. And it was made by a company called Koken Filters. And it said to put this filter over your camera's lens, shoot the roll of film through the camera without letting any light hit the film. And then when you get to the end of the roll without any light hitting the film, then you push the rewind button and open the shutter and start rewinding the film back into the camera with the shutter open, exposing the roll as it's going backwards continuously into the cassette. And so what you end up with is one picture on a whole roll of film being rewound backwards with the shutter open. And it said to point it at some traffic, a roadway.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And I shot 2 rolls of color film to show this guy with that technique that I had played with 20 years earlier. And I developed the roll, and it came out pretty good. And he looked at it, and he said, wow, this is amazing. He's like, I've never seen anything like this, a whole roll of film as a single frame. And there's some unusual kind of distortion and things that happen with this
It
technique.
gives a really interesting amount, like motion and movement to it.
I kind of call my wall a freak show. I mean, it's absolutely, it can go from literal to completely distorted and whacked out. So when I showed it to him, he loved it, and he said, let's do this for one of our brochure shots. And I was like, yeah, okay, fine. Well, now I'm really in trouble because I have no idea how am I gonna make this a professional, repeatable process. So my crew, I had a crew of like 3 guys that worked for me at the time, and we started building a modified Nikon camera system, 35 millimeter I went to vendors that I'd been working with to create a rheostat system where I could turn up and down a motor that would move the film and make it predictable and repeatable. So we did that shoot for that client. And then I started thinking, well, maybe this is something that I could really make my own, because in the advertising commercial industry, you do a lot of stuff that is for your clients, that they tell you what they want. And
Yeah.
sometimes you're almost you're just shooting something that they already know what they want. And your creativity is somewhat limited. Now, you do need to bring something to the table, but
But it's within that, the
very tight parameters.
The guidelines of what they already
They give
want.
you a layout, and you've got a format, and it's vertical, and you need the car over here, and you need so it's pretty tight. Well, when we went and did that shoot, and then it was all done, I thought, well, this is really interesting thing to do personal work, because that's where you really separate yourself from your competition, is your personal work. Your commercial work, a lot of our works kind of look similar because you're working towards a goal of the client, where your personal work can be anywhere and anything. And this became kind of my personal mission.
Oh, that's cool.
To just develop a camera system. Now, this idea of moving film behind a slit is more than 100 years old.
Yeah.
So it was developed by a French guy in the late 1800s, early 1900s to document the finish of a horse race.
Oh, interesting.
So the slit only allows the camera or the film to see the finish line of a horse race, not left, not right. People oftentimes look at my work and say panorama because it's wide or long, but it's actually only seeing inches of the scene, but it's seeing it over time.
Yeah.
So it is literally a bit of a freak show. It's a very unusual technique that I've made kind of my life's work.
I think it's really fascinating. I mean, and to get into a few of the things that you brought up, it's such a hard thing with art, because again, people maybe have an idea of what they want, but until you don't know what you want until you see it for most, for a lot of things, or maybe
Yeah.
people have an idea, but like to kind of push the boundaries and to push the limit or the comfort zones or whatever, like people don't know what's possible even until you kind of show them what is possible. And this is this technique that you've adopted and refined.
Yeah.
It really kind of pushes that. It shows people what's possible. It shows a totally, something new and different. And again, like I think it's got to be a hard thing for a lot of different art forms, especially the photography, especially some of that stuff, especially the commercial stuff, because they have an idea of what they want, but like to kind of build in those creative aspects of that and to kind of move the needle on what is possible.
Yeah.
And to show people. I mean, again, I think I'm going to totally butcher it, but there's Henry Ford was asked, people, he has a quote apparently of like, if you ask people what they want, they'd say a faster horse.
Yeah.
Back before they had cars, right? And so, it's you don't know what you want until you know what's possible.
Right.
And so for you to kind of move that bar and to expand that, what's possible on that stuff has been fascinating. I imagine though that the process, I mean, again, like, for what I do, I mean, when you do these specific things, you almost have to kind of be a crazy inventor. And a lot of the tools that I use for the things that I make, there's not tools out there in the mainstream world to do a lot of these things. So I have to like build and invent a lot of the different tools and techniques and stuff like that to be able to do what I do with the sculpture work. So I can see, but I also know that having done that, my first couple iterations of things, like the first one out the gates is usually not like it's a strong work in progress is like a nice way of saying it.
Starting point.
It's a starting point. And so it takes, I mean, these things oftentimes it's like a process of refinement that happens over multiple iterations.
Yeah.
So you did the shoot, everybody's happy, like it,
Yeah.
and just to kind of describe it to people that can't see your work or haven't seen it. I mean, these are long. Like how long are the prints that you're doing on some of these at the festival? I mean, we're talking 6 or 7 feet long. Some of them.
Yeah, that's a small one.
So they're longer than that.
Yeah,
even, a lot of them.
so I've gotten to where I like exhibiting a 12-foot print. So 12-foot,
wow. Okay.
12-foot long by 12 inches tall.
Yep.
Some of them are a little bigger, but 9.5 feet is kind of my standard size by 12 inches tall. And everything is long because it's a whole roll of film shot as a single picture. I remember when I first started doing this technique, I was not convinced that it was interesting or even viable to really, or even a good idea to pursue. I actually thought it was too freaky looking and too weird looking because sometimes you have in your brain what you think the result will be, and it's not what you thought. It's something different, and it's unique. So I had to show it to people and get convinced by other people saying, "Oh my gosh, this is so cool." I'm like, "Really? You think that's really? Do you like it?" I think it's kind of like almost like offensive. They're like, no, it's cool. So I had to get used to the distortions.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of times you kind of have this expectation of it being, I'm a perfectionist, and so I expect it to come out a certain way. And when you lose control of that perfection and it becomes kind of this random sort of result, then I have to kind of like warm up to it.
Yeah.
And see the value in it. And I oftentimes just ask other people their opinions, and that helps me to then sort of have a barometer as to whether it's something. That's what I used to say. Is it something or is it not? Is it nothing?
Well, it's got to be hard because, again, I mean, I've seen some like where you have like the big waves rolling in and the waves roll by and it kind of but you're seeing like multiple sets of waves
Yes.
along this
Timeline.
this timeline.
It's a timeline.
Or like
of
people going on a
single place.
race and like people running by, like
Yeah.
you film the lifeguards
Yeah.
on some of the competition stuff,
Yeah.
and it shows like this timeline progression of people running by on these races
In the same place.
in the same place, and it's just to me it's fascinating in the sense that it tells a story in these moments in time, but like not like a moment. It's like an extended moment in time.
Yes, yeah.
And that's a very unique thing in photography, especially because mostly photography, it's like it's a moment in time.
Yeah,
It's
fraction of a second.
It's a millisecond in time.
Yeah.
And what you are doing, what you're showing is like, no, it's like a more extended period. Like what's the time frame between start and finish when you're doing it?
So to make this work, I had to write math formulas with the help of my engineer father.
Yeah.
And so what we did is it's basically a ratio of time that it takes the subject to move through the frame, and the film has to move through the camera at the same period of time. So if it takes the subject X, like a quarter of a second to move through the frame, then the film has to move through the camera in a quarter of a second.
Got it.
So I'm matching the speed of the subject as it moves through the frame with the speed of my film. So basically, every shot is a math formula that has to be calculated uniquely to that shot. So not only do I need to know the speed, I have to know the distance, because if an airplane is in the air, 5 miles in the air, relative to me looking at it, it looks like it's barely moving, but it's going 550 miles an hour. So distance and speed are what I must have in order to calculate how many RPMs to make the motor spin that then is driving the film through the camera at the right speed. Now, if things are moving at different speeds in the same scene, then there's distortion. What's moving at the right speed, at the right distance that I pre-calculated, it will be sharp and kind of literally proportioned. Things that are further get stretched, things that are closer get compressed. And similarly, things that are moving quicker or further away, all this different distance and differential of speed, that's where the distortion comes up. So a roll of film, the camera that I built, I've got 2 of them. I built 2 identical systems. And the camera that I built has a range. The motor can move that 66-inch roll of film. It's 220 film going through a Hasselblad camera is what I use. And that roll of film goes through in about a second for the fastest subjects that I shoot, like 200-mile-an-hour race cars.
Yeah.
Now, the slowest roll that I've probably put through there goes through the camera in like 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So it's moving so slowly. It'll take 10 minutes for that same 66-inch roll of film to go through the camera.
That's fast. That's so different. Okay. And so depending on subject matter. So if you're doing obviously race cars, it's going to be fast.
Zipping through the camera.
But if it's waves on a huge
Correct.
day, that's going to be slower because you're waiting for like the swell has to come in. I mean, it's coming
Well,
in.
it's all based on speed and distance, and waves are one of the hardest things because I still cannot tell you. And if someone out there could send me the calculations for how fast a wave is moving, I calculate, somewhere between 5 and 10 miles an hour, but that's a pretty big margin for error.
Yeah.
I
can say after all the years of lifeguarding, they all move at slightly different speeds. You have ground swell that's doing one big south swell.
Right.
You've got wind swell is coming in at different intervals. I mean,
and as it comes to the beach, it starts to slow down or accelerate.
they're all different. And so, yeah,
And how far away is a wave? from you
Yeah,
on the
it
beach.
depends on where you're at. Yeah, there's so many different factors. Like
So-
that would be a tough one.
So here's what I do. I go and I make my best calculated guess, and I push the button and I cross my fingers.
Wow.
And a lot of times I am successful. Not always. I recently went to Hawaii and shot 40 rolls of film. I went to the North Shore just to photograph the surf, and I did not get a single shot that I liked. The epic shots that I have, you know, it's just you never know. You just have to
Yeah.
go and try. If
Yeah.
you don't try, you get nothing.
Yeah.
If you try, you might just get something epic. And because when I'm shooting the film on the beach in Hawaii, I don't get to see what I've done until I'm back from
Yeah,
Hawaii.
because it's not digital. I mean, it's
And
all
a week
film.
later,
Yeah.
I get the film developed and I see what I've got. Now, I do bring a test roll of some rolls of black and white that I process in the room. But you know what? It still gives me limited information. It still ends up being a fair bit of a guess and a fair bit of a gamble, and you just have to go and try.
Yeah. Well,
That's
that's
it.
where when it comes together, that's where kind of that magic happens.
Yep.
You know, I'm sure I mean, there's a few pieces. Again, I love all your work, but there's definitely a few over the years that it's just that magic
Yeah.
happened and it all came together.
Yeah.
Any particular pieces, like subject matters that pop into your mind?
Well, you know, talking about waves, I mean, the one I like is Big Wednesday, which is at the Wedge on August 27th, 2014. You probably remember that day.
I remember that was a huge day.
That was the day that the Newport Beach lifeguard got drowned.
Yeah.
Which,
yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, was a big deal.
That's
I
a
don't-
big deal. That doesn't happen.
I don't
often in
think
the lifeguard
any
world.
lifeguard had ever passed away, at least in Newport Beach. I'm pretty sure it had never happened.
No, that was especially in Newport. It was huge in Laguna, but it was even bigger up there. I mean, it was
Yeah.
it just the angles. Again, every wave's different, every
Yeah.
swell's different.
Yeah.
That was a particularly
Yep. And
brutal swell.
rescuing a
up there.
surfer, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah. So
think it
no,
was.
it's yeah. So that I mean,
Yeah.
there was some huge
Yeah.
huge waves
And
coming.
I
in
think
that day.
Laird Hamilton that day in Malibu rescued some guy. That was kind of a newsworthy thing as
There's
well.
tons. Well, I mean,
It was a
there
huge day.
Hundreds and hundreds of rescues in Laguna over that
That
on that
swell.
day, and then over
yeah,
that
Hurricane Marie.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah. And so I'm there shooting my camera next to Greg McGilvery, shooting his IMAX camera. And I remember one of those cleanup sets, you know, washed up and got everyone wet, as it does frequently, which is kind of part of the fun. And I remember my box of film, some guy coming up and saying, "Is this yours?" And it was just covered in sand and wet, and
Oh, no.
but it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're gonna take it, and it's gonna dip and dunk in
Yeah.
chemistry, and everything was good. But all those little stories add to the memory.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
but that was epic. Big Wednesday. It was a Wednesday, August 27th, 2014, Hurricane Marie, and the shots that I got that day were insane. I
Yeah.
mean, and honestly, will it ever be bettered? I question if I will ever get a better shot than that.
Yeah.
Now, other shots that really stick in my mind are, because this is just math. If the math is right, the speed and the distance, and I get all my calculations right, and I do everything correct, it's almost like a one-shot deal. I can get it in one shot. And there was a shot that I did in Bishop, and I was skiing in Mammoth with my daughters, and I drove down at 4 a.m. to Bishop to get this fence line that had snow along it. And I thought maybe a horse would be along the fence line. And sure enough, when I showed up in the dark, there was a horse right at the fence line, snow, beautiful, Bishop Sierras behind it. And so I set up the camera and waited for the sun to pop over the horizon. And I shot one roll of film, and I was changing the roll of film, and I looked up, and the horse was running towards the rancher who had hay and
Yeah.
was setting it to feed the horses. And so I literally had one roll, and I developed that roll, and it was absolutely perfect and done, you know. So days like that, when, you know, when you get something and you have no idea, you know, what it's going to turn out like, or other days when you do everything right and you only needed one roll to get it.
Yeah.
And the light was epic, and the horse was there, and it you know, but you just never know, and you got to go and try.
Yeah, it's so, I mean, I'm so fascinated by this because it's very different than like my process, obviously, with sculpture, right? So it's, I mean, there's a lot, like you've got to go hunt down these circumstances and these places and be in the right place. And again, you never know how it's going to go. And sometimes it's just magic and it all comes together. Sometimes it's, unfortunately, it doesn't, you know, but it's very different than sculpture, which is sort of like chipping away towards a goal of, towards a piece, right? And so it's going to turn out, you know, I mean, it does take on a certain magic of its own, but I have a lot of control over it.
Yeah.
It's totally within my hands to kind of control. And with you, especially with this, like you're definitely a an important component of the whole thing, but like there's a lot that's out of your hands. Like if you're a control freak, like that's a hard, like you're not in control. Like it's at the mercy of all these things coming together. And that's why it's kind of like that's got to be kind of a frustrating aspect in sometimes, but also like an exciting, like cool part of it, because it is like, there's these little magical things where the stars lined up and it just is, it's just this magical thing. And I think it's really neat. And I think it's also really cool for people that see your work to know the backstory on this stuff and to know kind of what goes into it, because there's, you know, and I think that's with all work, but especially I think with what you do, because it's so interesting. And to know that, hey, those waves are on this day at this time, and this is what's going on, and this is how that happened. I think that's fascinating. I mean, I think that that's a big part of, as someone that's a fan of artwork and that, you know, tries to collect different people's pieces and stuff as I can, you know, when I come across stuff. You know, the process and the backstory to me is a very, very important component, and it definitely flavors the work in a way that I think is very important to the artwork. And I think that's why it's so neat for people to be able to come down to like the Festival of the Arts, and you're there a lot, and they can meet you and they can talk to you about that. And I think that's what makes like these shows like that such a amazing thing for it's such an amazing opportunity for people, because I mean, how in this throwaway society that we live in, where we don't even know, half the stuff we get is not even real. Like it's like something made to look like something, and you don't know where it comes from. There's no real valuation to it. It kind of shows up at your house, and then, you know, within a very short period of time, it ends up in a landfill. Like art is one of those things that sort of is outside of that. Like good art is something that can be around within a family, becomes part of a family story. Like it can be something that becomes generational. Yeah. And I think that knowing, you know, you and getting your backstory and knowing that, I think is a really important component to that. Yep. You know, and it's something that I think there's a lot of value in that. And so, no, I think it's really awesome. Well, I wanted to kind of go, and like I said, we've both been in the festival. I've known you again in the capacity of what you're doing, because you were, you know, you were doing that from the get-go in the almost 20 years now that we've known each other. Yeah. But you've got a long history of doing artwork and photography and film and all that stuff. How did you get started in this? Like, where did you start on this journey?
Yeah. So, you know, when I first started wearing the badge at the Festival of Arts, and it said artist, there were some years that our badges said exhibitor. Yeah. And people didn't like that. They're like, oh, I'm an artist. And so they changed the badge to say artist. And I actually kind of had a problem with that, because I've never thought of myself as an artist. Artists are, you know, lead a tortured life, and they've suffered, and they've overcome all
that's
this.
That's sort of the cliche of it.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, no, I'm no artist. But you know what I am? I'm a really good problem solver.
Yeah.
That's, you know, if my badge said problem solver,
You'd be cool with that.
oh man, I would wear that the proudest. So
I think
artists,
there's a lot of that in all of it. I mean,
I do too.
I
Well,
think-
when you were talking about inventing tools, I grew up with my father in the garage as mechanics,
Yeah.
building cars and motorcycles. You know, that's what we did. We'd come to a problem and you need a tool. You don't have the tool, you make a tool that gets it done.
I think doing art in a lot of ways is one of the ultimate problem solvers because you can't get on, you know, I mean, nowadays you can't get on YouTube or anything like that and go, oh, here's the solution to this.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these problems are very specific,
Yeah.
you know, and again, I mean, like with what I'm doing, I mean, figuring out how I'm going to get the texture I want on the kelp or the butterfly wings or, you know, any of these things, like there's a lot that goes in a whole process of solving problems and refining that as you go to be able to actually do it efficiently.
Yeah.
Because part of doing art, you know, and you can attest to this, part of it, you know, making something once is hard enough. But to be able to repeat that magic and be able to do it efficiently,
Right.
and to be able to do that, like that's what you have to be able to do it for a living.
To be a professional.
To be able to do it for a living.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's where like that problem solving thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I've said it before too. I think that's a huge component of what we do. So
And isn't that better when you solve the problem as opposed to just going and buying something that solves that problem? I mean, I get so much more. I mean, that's kind of what I live for is to solve problems. I
Yeah.
love when people, like I teach photography in the Emeritus Division, Emeritus Institute at Saddleback, which is older adults. And I love when people bring me problems.
yeah.
Because a problem to me is an opportunity for a solution. And I am all about solutions. So,
Yeah.
and I feel really confident in being able to come up with a solution. And so every day that I get to solve a problem makes me feel better. You know, that just makes me feel better. Yeah.
I think it's awesome. So you grew up kind of tinkering with stuff and building,
100%.
fixing
Taking things
cars,
apart.
taking stuff apart.
I was the neighborhood mechanic because my dad, you know, growing up, I'm the son of an engineer. So I just grew up with that mentality of being able to fix anything.
Yeah.
And being able to invent. You know, he's got a lot of patents to his credit working for companies where he doesn't get the benefit of the patents, but his company did, but they still have his name on it. And so, you know, just with that, growing up with that thought process that there is a solution and you can come up with it, you know?
Yeah.
So that was sort of growing up. And then I, interestingly, the way that I became a photographer was that I moved to Huntington Beach. I had raced motorcycles, played tennis, and hockey. So that was my world, hockey. I lived in Ohio, learned to ice skate. So I moved to Huntington Beach downtown, and everyone surfs. I'm now starting high school. If you're one of the cool kids, you surf. So I'm like, okay, how do you fit in? Got to surf, learning to surf, the hardest sport. I do all kinds of sports pretty well. Surfing is one of the hardest things. Balancing on a board in the ocean, paddling.
There's a lot of different elements that you got to
The
be able to do.
strength, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's tough. So I'm learning, but not anywhere near these kids that have been surfing all their life. So I went to a surf contest, and a lot of the cool kids were out surfing in the contest. And I was just watching from the beach, and there was a camera in a camera bag, and I said, whose camera is that, and can I use it? I'd never really shot a picture ever, but I was just standing there bored, so I picked up the camera and started shooting pictures of the surfers. And when they came in from the ocean, they saw me shooting pictures of them, and they're like, "Oh, Rick, hey, did you get any pictures of me?" And all of a sudden, I realized, wow, I'm in the cool kid crowd now. This is how I get in.
Yeah.
I don't need to surf.
Yeah.
I just be the photographer of the surfers. So that's what got me into photography. Then I kind of, it's shooting from the beach with a long telephoto lens is kind of boring. So I started thinking, I want to build water housings and swim out in the ocean and shoot from the water's point of view, because that's really exciting, slightly
It's a
dangerous.
dynamic shot. Yeah.
So that's what I did. I learned how to build water housings and out of plexiglass and putting film cameras in. And so that's what I started doing. And then I went to Surfer Magazine, actually Surfing Magazine, a guy named Flame, Larry Moore. He was the editor of Surfing Magazine. And I asked him, do you think I should be a surf photographer or go to Art Center College of Design in Pasadena? And he goes, whoa. He goes, stop. He goes, go to Art Center 100%. Don't even think about anything else. If you've got the opportunity, go there. So that's what I did. I went to Art Center, commuted from Huntington Beach to Art Center every day for 3 years. An hour to 2 hour drive every day on the way there and back. Wow. And it was the best thing I ever did.
Really?
Oh, it changed my life. The work ethic, the discipline, the experience with instructors that were taking time out of their busy professional life to teach a class. I met Rob Gage, who's a Laguna Beach resident and a previous Festival of Arts exhibitor. He became kind of my model, and he hired me to do really interesting problem-solving stuff. And he was a car shooter, and I said, that's what I want to do then. And so, but not quite like Rob. There were other people like Jeff Zwart who did really dynamic action stuff, and that's really what I went after. And so I started shooting cars and then a lot of the big car guys move into filmmaking, and that was something that interested me. So I moved into filmmaking, and that's pretty much what I have done for most of my career. Is went from still photography and automotive to filmmaking, documentary, short films in the automotive space. Made this camera system, so I've kind of focused on that. And being a professional photographer, filmmaker, I learned all the stuff about being in business.
Yeah.
And as much as you'd like to just do what you want, you do have to serve the market, right? You have to figure out what your market is, and you have to try and figure out how am I gonna make a living doing what I want to do, because if you do what you love, then your life is gonna be much better, and people are gonna see the passion in you, and you know what? They're gonna pay you a lot of money to work with you because you exhibit this joy and passion, and that's what people want to be around.
Yeah, that's awesome. How did you, because again, like getting started and kind of breaking into these different industries, I hear from everybody is so hard. Yeah. How did you break into the automotive industry? Like, what was your start on that?
Yeah, so there's always a person.
And what year was that?
Yeah, so there's always a person. There's in my life, I can make a pretty short list of the most important people. So it was interesting because I was working on my portfolio of automotive imagery through.
Were you in college at this time?
No, I was out of college, and I started doing surfwear and lifestyle and Hobie, and I was doing Mori Boogie bodywear, and I was doing all this
like product kind of stuff, or action shot, or both.
Lifestyle photography of people on the beach having fun.
So that's how you were paying the bills.
Yeah,
and
that was right out of Art Center. I started doing that, and I became the agency for Hobie Apparel and Mori Boogie bodywear and many sportswear companies, lifestyle apparel companies, and then I started realizing that as fun and perfect as that was, my real passion is in motorsports and speed. And so that was that was what I really needed to do. I kind of fell into the apparel and lifestyle thing. Again, a guy, Denny Scopoletti, was sponsored by Hobie. He was a motorcycle racer. And he asked me would I do some photos for him, and he said, hey, they need some photography. And I went and met, and they said, well, will you do our ads? And I said, sure. And so I fell into that. And so then I was working on my car portfolio, building that body of work of cars by shooting for magazines. So that's what you do, is you shoot for editorial magazines, Road and Track, Motor Trend, Sports Car International, Automobile. You work for those magazines because it's easier to get work and you get to kind of do whatever you want.
Are you kind of going in, sorry, but I love
it's fine.
hearing the process on this. Are you going in and kind of, like when you get going, like for the magazines and some of these things, building out your portfolio, you're going in and kind of bidding it. Like, are you bidding it or getting hired? Or are they going, hey, here's what our budget is, or here's what it is? Or are you just doing it and kind of almost as a pro bono? I mean, how's that work?
No pro bono. That's not cool.
Yeah.
Because they're making money. You
Yeah.
know, this concept of doing stuff for photo credit is, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just it hurts the industry. It's not good. So what you do is you build your portfolio, you submit your portfolio, and you get on the short list of people that they want to work with. You stay on top of it, you promote, you market, you stay in touch. Out of sight, out of mind. Okay?
Yeah.
You stay in touch, and then when you get your chance, you do a 110% job. You put your whole heart into it, and then hopefully you get asked back to do it again and again. And then once you start to get that credential, then you start to get more opportunities, and that grows. So the photo lab where I developed my film, there was a lady named Mary Lovett. And she was a friend of Kiki, who ran the lab with her husband, Kiki and Eris. I mean, these are names that I haven't thought about in 15 years, but this is how it came to be. And so Mary actually worked at a big advertising agency, and she was a friend of Kiki's who worked at the lab. And they were talking, these two ladies, and she said, oh, I know this nice kid who's trying to get into the automotive advertising. And she's like, oh, well, I can get him a meeting with our creative director. And she had never met me. And so she goes to her creative director, and she says, oh, I've got a good friend that I want you to meet. And he's like, who's this, Mary? And oh, good friend, I've known him for a long time. And so she set up a meeting. I'd never met this lady. She's telling him that we're good friends.
Yeah.
So I said, Mary, what if he asks me questions? And so this guy's name was Ken Jacobs, the creative director for Foote Cone Belding Mazda. And so I got the meeting, and he's like, oh, so you're a friend of Mary's? I'm like, yeah. And I changed the subject quickly.
Yeah.
I hadn't even
Steer
met
that
her.
a different direction.
Yeah. And so he looked at my portfolio and he said, he goes, you know what? I think you've got a future in this industry. And sure enough, I got a call to do a job. Now, I had never done a commercial job. And he put me with one of his art directors. And the job was to shoot a car driving in front of an Olympic stadium, a train station, and I can't remember what the other one was right now. And so we're strategizing, well, how are we going to make an Olympic stadium? And so we went and rented 120-foot canvas backdrops from Paramount Studios, and I hung them over tractor truck trailers that were parked end to end out in Palm Springs in the middle of nowhere where the light was beautiful. And so we created these sets that looked like a train station, looked like a Olympic stadium, but we were out in the middle of nowhere in Palm Springs, and we just were hanging backdrops that were canvas backdrops. and the wind's blowing and the canvas is coming off of the,
Oh man. Yeah.
and I'm, doing car to car motion shots with this Mazda. And, so that was my first job.
Wow. Well, good thing you like problem solving, because I'm sure there's a lot of problem solving involved in that, for sure.
And the interesting thing was that when the job was all done and I delivered the film and had a post meeting with that creative director, he said, "Rick, your photography is sensational." He says, "The thing you need to work on is how you treat your clients."
Oh.
He says, "We expect better motorhomes and we expect better food."
Wow.
So that was my takeaway. So I had gone to school and I'd done all my homework to learn how to shoot pictures,
Yeah.
but I didn't quite understand
That-
the other stuff. So I had to go literally to the School of Hard Knocks now
Yeah.
and figure out, how do these guys, what motorhome do they rent to make
Yeah.
their client feel comfortable? What caterers do they hire to feed the crew?
Man, that's
Isn't that-
interesting.
isn't
Yeah.
that funny?
Well, it's interesting because, again, getting back to the school versus, learning on the street kind of idea, right? And there's there's so many different paths to getting there, right? And doing it. And I never went to art school and never did that, in a formal setting.
Wow.
But I was lucky that there was people that were willing to show me some
Did
stuff.
you intern or?
No, I mean, I guess you could call it an apprenticeship and stuff like that. And I've kind of worked with people and talked to people and kind of done that. But a lot of it's kind of just been
Trial and error.
problem solving and screwing up and making a lot of mistakes and kind of learning from that and going from there. And so I guess there's an argument to be made, and I do want to hear your take on it, because obviously you said the school was one of the best things that you've done, and I think it's an awesome opportunity. I think there's a lot of things. What's your thoughts in terms of, like, with money being a finite thing for most people, and going and being interested in art, wanting to do art. Art is depending on what medium you're doing, all of them are expensive. I mean, what I do, like all the bronze and, all the different materials and the tools and the space, and it's expensive.
Yeah.
What you do, all the camera film, all that stuff, it's all expensive.
Equipment.
Painters. It's no matter what you're doing, it's an expensive investment.
Yeah.
Because I hear this often about, like, okay, is it worth it to go to college? And is it worth, or would you be better served investing that money into materials, or just like getting the business started up or whatever? What's your thoughts on that?
Because time has changed so much, right?
Yeah.
There was no Google when I was in school.
That's where you get answers in school. Yeah.
So now with Google, I use YouTube almost every day to solve a problem, right? Someone knows something that I don't, and I can use YouTube to get a demo or to learn something. And so that resource, the internet has opened up opportunities that did not exist, right?
It's a type of informal schooling.
It is.
Which I guess if I was going to say, like, what my schooling, you ask, like, I would say it was a very informal schooling where, like, I learned from, some of these metal fabricators and blacksmiths and stuff like that were really cool and really open to sharing. And I was kind of just working in their shop, for free, like helping out on stuff and, grinding and doing, just grunt work kind of stuff. But that's a very informal path.
I think that it has something to do with your personality as an individual, because school, for a lot of artists and school, it's not compatible. It's interesting because I now teach. I love teaching. That is not something for everyone. Some people don't like to teach.
Yeah.
I love to teach. I love to share. And so the whole school environment, I think, is really, really interesting for some people. I like the collaboration. I like the group dynamic. But some people don't. I think that you have to sort of do a lot of soul searching and figure out, is that the right avenue? I think now we have more opportunities to learn informally, but it's still self-driven, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one thing good about school is you've got a reason, or someone is kind of dictating a pace.
Yeah.
And they're assigning things to learn, where a lot of people are not that self-driven. You've got to be very self-driven I think, to educate yourself outside of school. Most of the commercial photographers that were my competition, they assisted other photographers to learn how to treat the client. I never did.
Yeah.
I went right into business. So I was able to do the photography, but I had no idea how to treat the client. And
Yeah.
so most of the industry that my competitors came up through would assist big photographers and see by experience the catering, all the little nuances that are way outside of photography.
Yeah.
And so it's not, to think that you're going to learn photography and you're going to go into business, it doesn't work like that.
It's a different thing. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
so much more, right? I mean, we don't need another starving artist out there. So how do you not starve? You've got to learn business, right?
Yeah.
You've got to either hire marketing people and promote and learn the tools that allow you to get your voice out there.
Yeah.
You can't do it alone. You have to ask for help. That was a big part of my ability to become what I would say some level of success, was to ask for help.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people want to operate just on their own, and they're shy to go and ask for help. And that was one of the best things that I ever learned, was asking people advice, asking them their opinion, asking, would you help me with this? And reciprocate. I'll help you, you help me.
Yeah.
A lot of people have trouble with that. I think that is a huge part of growing.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to be able, because again, I mean, you're doing this and you're building out, the business of what you're doing, and you have to be able to scale it, or else it just sort of hits a wall.
Yeah.
And I think at a certain point, you scale to a point where it's not sustainable to do it. You can't wear all those hats well. Mm-mm. And so you kind of need to focus on the things that only you can provide to the overall mission, and kind of bring in somebody else to help with the aspects that are things that, that they can help with.
Which is hard.
It's hard.
It's really hard for me, especially because I want to do everything. I think I can do everything, but I learned that I can't, and honestly, I don't want to.
No, I've gotten to that point. I mean, we're all kind of, I think most artists have a little streak of being a control freak on some level. I mean, that's, and I think that you have to be able to do that. And I've kind of had to learn that. I mean, with this stuff, I've got, I bring in people to help out with the marketing, with I have some people that are helping out with some of the production stuff, and doing some of that, like what I was doing for people in their shops, grinding and helping out with that and doing. I think that that's a huge thing, because it allows me to be able to focus and do a better job at the stuff that only I can do.
Yeah. So yes, we've known each other a long time, and we've been Facebook friends for a long time.
Yeah.
And so I know what you do, and I'm a huge fan. I think, I don't think there's a second. I think you're the tops in our show at the festival. I think you're second to none. Really,
I appreciate you saying
that.
It's
Not because I'm here. That's what my wife Heather and I have thought forever. And I think a lot of people feel that. Now, so I'm aware of your work. I've even got a piece of your work.
Yep.
Okay, which is really cool. Now, when, what was I going to say? When you started on Facebook to do your marketing stuff, as much as I think you're probably able to do everything, I thought to myself, Casey is on a mission. He's working with somebody, and look at how epic your storytelling is on Facebook right now. And I was blown away because now your work is not just happening in a vacuum. Now your work is starting to come to life and sharing that process with the globe, right?
Yeah,
Because now
yeah.
Facebook, you're on Facebook, which is not local. It's not Laguna Beach. It's not California. It's the world.
Yeah.
And people can start to enjoy and see things come to life. And so I realized that, yeah, Casey's a talented guy, but you're working with someone to tell these stories, and you're doing a really good job of it.
I feel like you kind of have to now, or else you're doing a disservice to. I mean, again, I've said it before. I mean, I feel like one of the goals as an artist, is to make pieces that tell a story, and every story it needs to get out there into the world. And so, I think that I fought social media. Like I don't naturally gravitate to social media, and I kind of focused on the worst aspects of it in a sense, and I had a negative attitude about it because there are some bad things about it, and there's definitely, you could point to all sorts of stuff that's, I don't necessarily need that in my life, right? And so I really didn't embrace it or do that much with it for a long time. My wife actually, she eventually she's like, dude, with what you do, to not do it, you're an idiot to not do it, because it's visually, like, it's a visual thing. It's free, more, it's out there. It allows you to be able to cultivate your own audience and also educate your audience on what goes into this stuff, which again, we talked about it a little bit before. Like that's a big part of the whole thing is the process. I think that's a really important part of art. And so I think that it's important to get it out there. But yeah, like when I was the person that was doing the posts and whatever, even after I embraced it or whatever we want to call it, it just wasn't happening. Like there's too many different things going on. And
it's a full-time job.
It can be a full-time job getting out there, especially on all the different platforms. I mean, there's so many different things.
You've got kids, you've got a life, hopefully. You've got your work, you've got, it's like you can't, it needs too much attention.
It's nice to have, it's one of those things that's great to bring in help. And so it's nice, especially for artists. I mean, a lot of people don't necessarily want to do whatever. It's been a good investment for me to have, some people helping out with these things and to have, a handful of people that are actually involved in getting this stuff out and making sure it actually happens.
And you've chosen Facebook as your kind of portal?
That's one of them. Instagram's a big one. I'd say probably Instagram's my biggest one.
Is it really?
Yeah, Instagram's the main one that and again, like, from a business perspective, it's been a good investment. Like, it's cultivated a lot of interest. It's cultivated a lot of different people that are into the stuff. It's generated a lot of sales, but I think with art and doing what we're doing, like, the way to make this sustainable is not to have one big sale and then a flat line of nothing for a while, and then another big sale maybe, and then a flat. I feel like you need to have a lot of different tributaries that all feed into the same river, right? And so I think that's what keeps that flow and keeps it going. And so I look at like my, all these different social medias, the Festival of the Arts, all these different things. Those are all tributaries, and even the podcast, like doing this, right? Talking about it. Like, I think all of it, there's not a ton of art education in school. There's not a ton of, like, a lot of those things have dropped off, and that's unfortunate. But I don't want to wait around for the world to change. I think that it's important for us to take charge of this stuff and go, hey, like, I'm doing something different that not a lot of people are doing. I think that there's interest in it here, you know, and I think with good storytelling and showing people what goes into this stuff, we've proven that there is interest in it. And I think that it's one of those things where you get it out there, and all those little things plant seeds.
Yep.
And, you know, obviously we need sales and all that stuff to keep the lights on with all this stuff. But I think it's also important, like, to share what we do and to kind of inspire people and to go, hey, this is possible. Like, this is things that here's what I'm doing. Maybe, you know, maybe it might inspire someone to, you know, to look into doing some wood carving or some blacksmithing, or maybe they want to start welding, or maybe whatever it is, right? Or maybe with you, like the photography, they go, wow, I've never seen anything like that. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
And so all those things, like, you know, these different trajectory changes, I think it kind of cultivates a renaissance of sorts of people being interested in learning some of these techniques and maybe learning some of these, you know, and having an interest in it.
Yep.
Because again, I mean, if we're going to wait around for the schooling systems to, like, do a bunch of art education and show all these things and whatever, it could be a long wait, you know? So I think that as artists, we have to take charge of our own destinies in a sense. And one of the ways that I think we can do that is with social media. If we do that, we don't have to, like, go through galleries, which, as much as I think I can see the value of galleries, it does want, you know, generally 50% of the sale price goes to galleries. Like, there's a lot of stuff, and I think a lot of people are getting their initial introduction to all of our work through their phone.
Yeah.
You know, and like it or not, that's the world we live in. And so I think that, you know, if I can, at least on my phone with the stuff, I don't want to spend a lot of time on social media. But the time that I do spend, if I am on there, it's really neat to look through and see work that, you know, see things that are inspiring and uplifting and kind of get me motivated to do these things, as opposed to seeing a bunch of stuff that just bums me out.
Yeah.
You know, which there's that too.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a fire that it can burn, it can heat you up, but it also can burn you if you're not careful.
I think we're pretty good at filtering what we, you know, want to focus on or not. I think, well, if you're not good at it, then learn to be good at it, because you can ignore the bad and focus on the good. And I think that that's really important, especially in our world of social media, because, you know, it would almost seem that there are people and factions or that want to sort of create fear and problems, as opposed to solutions and inspiring people. And I think for me, if I can inspire one person, that's a pretty good way to think that your life has gone. If you can inspire people, when young people come to the festival and stand and look at my work and give it the time to think about it, and I talk to them and they understand what's going on, and they start to, I can see the gears turning in their head, and they can start to think about, wow, that's really interesting. And if I can inspire a young person, there's no better compliment to me for someone to think about something that I've done and to try and, you know, incorporate something that I've done positively into their life in a positive way. So that's, to me, that's the best.
That's huge. And that's perpetuating this artwork into the future. And I think, Rick, I think that you've definitely done that. What you've done, your work is inspirational. Your dedication to sharing it and to teaching and all that stuff is also inspirational. I'm so stoked that we did this today. I appreciate you coming down and taking the time. Like I said, it's been fun being in the festival with you for all these years. So thank you for coming down.
And many more.
And many more, right? But no, I think this has been great. And this has been really fun. And I think, you know, for people listening, you know, please share this conversation with your friends. I think it's really fun for people to learn the backstory of everything and learn about your process. And then also, like and subscribe on the, wherever you're listening to it. So it kind of helps to get these podcasts out there. And I think it helps to kind of get a little bit of that positivity and show that, hey, this is possible and this is stuff that we can do. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It was fun. Thanks. Thanks, Casey.
All right, buddy.
Okay.